everybody, Dr. Rory Stern here of ADHDFamilyOnline.com, and right now I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the hallmark symptoms of ADHD. These are the main symptoms that most people identify with ADHD. These are the ones that get all the attention in the press, the media, thrown around in popular culture, thrown around by, you and I. We look at somebody who is a little hyperactive, maybe like you see me, oh, that person must have ADHD. I want to talk about these because, A, they're the public face of ADHD. They're what we recognize. They're most identified with ADHD. They mean a lot more than just ADHD, and I don't think we talk about that. I also want to talk about, what do they look like, and why are they bad necessarily? And what I mean by that is, could they be good? So what are the three hallmark symptoms? Hyperactivity, impulsiveness, and inattention. Okay, that's the public face of ADHD. And I want to let you know that there are actually a lot of things that can mimic those symptoms. So those are not exclusive to ADHD. So point number one, or takeaway number one right now is, just because it looks like ADHD, it smells like ADHD, doesn't mean it's ADHD. So if we have hyperactivity, if we have impulsivity, if we have inattention or inattentiveness, doesn't necessarily mean it absolutely is ADHD. There's a lot of other things that share those symptoms. That's one thing. If we look at, what does it mean? Okay, hyperactivity. That's the person who looks like they're driven by a motor, they're constantly fidgeting, they can't sit still. And I've been called hyperactive a lot in my life. And I balance that with looking at one true fact. I'm very passionate. And there are people who like that. There are some people who don't like that. So again, I would say here, let's look at passion, hyperactivity. There's a balance in everything here, okay? And then we'll look at, how does it become a problem? Number two, the impulsiveness. Somebody who's blurting out answers, they can't wait to share, they're doing things without thinking it through, they're doing things without thinking about the consequences. Okay, that's what we know of as impulsivity. This might be somebody who speaks out of turn, interrupts people, does something without thinking it through. Maybe they talk back to a parent or a teacher or a coworker without thinking about the consequences. That's the impulsivity. Now, I probably just painted a very grim picture for you, but what I want to let you know that impulsivity is also what can lead to innovation. That is not necessarily a bad thing. Impulsive people can take tremendous action. They can get a lot of things done by constantly going, oh, I've got this idea and I'm going to carry through. So again, I want to pull out the balance. I want to draw on the balance here that yes, these are the characteristics, these are the symptoms, but they're not necessarily all bad. The last one is inattention or inattentiveness. And that's the person who we know as a daydreamer, constantly in their head or looking somewhere else, not paying attention. That's that can be a good quality, let me say, is that with ADHD, inattention tends to happen when somebody's bored. We're not as passionate. We're not as engaged in something. So think of it that way, okay? Think of the person who is inattentive and they're bored, and the boredom leads to the trouble. So there's a connection for you. But people with ADHD or people who are inattentive, it's because they're not engaged enough. And that should be a trigger to say, hey, how do we connect with this person? What are we missing? Oftentimes people with ADHD or even people with giftedness who also share some of these characteristics, we talk about them as if they're falling through the cracks. The system is not identifying or catching them. That's one of the reasons why we need to focus more on the behaviors and the result that we're getting from these behaviors rather than on the symptoms as a piece of a diagnosis or disorder. You can lose so much by paying attention more to the symptoms and a diagnosis than you can by looking at the behaviors and the result or the outcome and what you want. So those are the three hallmark symptoms. I've probably talked a little bit more about inattention, impulsiveness, and hyperactivity being more than just the characteristics, the hallmark symptoms, but I want you to know they're very intertwined with what we're looking at here, and we'll be sure to talk more about that the next time. Take care, everybody.